Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World, and in this video we're going to talk about dupes for the yellow element. Uh, I'm not going to go into too much detail regarding the dupe system because I already did so in the previous video. That was the generic one on the topic, so please refer to it if you are looking for additional details. In this video I will just be mentioning the tiers uh, for some of the key aspects whenever I get to talk about them on a specific unit. So again, let me also give a brief overview of the yellow element as a whole, as I did in the exclusive equipment video. And I want to say that in this element, your main priorities will be for sure Yihwa Yeon. She is the first unit you want to get to full rainbow in this element. And after her, you have Bam as your next priority, and you want to get him to 3 red. I'm going to talk about Bam in more detail just in a second because he's the first unit in the list. But yeah, he's the second unit you want to dupe up in the yellow element, and then everyone else is pretty much worthless, to be honest. It's not that they are worthless, but it's just that like they are actually either not needed, you are not going to use them, or they have very niche use cases. The next two units I would recommend in this element overall are the two boss units, which are Cheonhwa and Shibisu. They are going to get a lot of value when they reach 3 red, and you don't need to take them any higher than that. You could, feel free to do so if you have no other better units to invest in, but to me that's overkill. Every other unit in the yellow team is simply not that worth to me, so I wouldn't bother with them. You can definitely go with Vespa a little bit. She's going to get a lot of value. She's going to be really good in PvP, and she's also used in boss fights. Her value in adventure won't really change based on dupes, but still you can get something more out of her, so it's definitely recommended. But then I would say those are the units that are really relevant in this element. Everyone else is pretty much not needed at all. You will notice that I won't focus too much on SSR Plus because they're a story on their own, so I will mention them individually when we get to them. But with these generic overviews I will do in also the following videos. If I do not mention the SSR Plus characters, do not worry, I'm not talking about them. Like, if I say those two are the only good units in this element, that's not taking into account the SSR Plus because they are really, really different in the way they are like built and how you want to focus on them and how you get them. So it's actually a different story, and we're going to go into more detail when we are talking about them. So this was just the overview. Let's get started with BAM. This guy gets a lot of value out of his skill levels increasing, so you actually really want him to 3 red. It's fine, again, as I said in the like my previous video on dupes, it's fine to get it to 3 purple, and in the early game, like before floor 16, is fine even if he's at 3 blue or even 3 green. I wouldn't push it too much though. I mean, no dupes, it's still a no. But I would say if you want to use him above floor 16, definitely 3 purple minimum. And if you want to use him above floor 21, 3 red bare minimum. But I would highly recommend taking him to full rainbow. It's definitely a good thing. So you need the skill levels for mainly two reasons. One of them being the passive that will go from regenerating 100 energy to regenerating 200. That's a really nice thing. And then his buffing skill is also going to regenerate, okay, 400 energy. We don't really care that much about that, but it's still a nice addition. And it's going to get from 40 attack and 40% attack and 40% defense increase to 80% of each, which is really great. Again, you can stop a purple it will be 70%, and that will still be good. But if you can, just try to get as many dupes of this guy as possible. Still, your priority will be Yihwa and not him. Next in the list is one of the guys I mentioned. He is really good in boss fights, and you actually either want him at 3 red or basically is pretty much average. He's fine, he's really good. I mean, he has a 70% defense shred on his special skill instead of an 80%, but this 10% makes a really big difference because you will pair this guy with another unit that will have a 20% permanent defense decrease on the opponent. And if you have 70%, it's just 90% decrease, nothing huge. But if you have 80%, it's going to be 100% defense reduction, which is actually going to skyrocket your damage by quite a bit. So definitely take this guy to 3 red if you plan on using him for the boss fights. Next in the list is Edahn. This is the first of the 2 SSR plus units we have in the yellow element. This guy is a DPS, and SSR plus DPSs are always strange. I mean, they can start to work with 3 green. They are okay, but some of them cannot keep up with the respective SSR carries. Like in this case, even if you have a 3 green Edahn, you will still lose from a 3 red Yeon. So yeah, I would say it's not that worth it. If you don't have him at 3 green, it's not even worth to just give him anything like I did. I don't have him at 3 green, so I didn't invest in his exclusive equipment, I didn't invest in his gear, nothing at all. He's just there. When I will have more copies, I might think about it. He's actually a really solid unit, he's really, really good, but it doesn't have as much AoE damage as Yihwa and is not on the same level. Probably a 3 red Edahn could be comparable to a full rainbow Yihwa, but even then I'm not that certain. I still think Yihwa is better than him. So I think even for rainbow, this guy is probably worse than Yihwa Yeon, to be honest. But again, he's a really solid unit. It could work then as a sub DPS, or you can have a second yellow team. But I wouldn't bother investing, to be honest. So feel free to do so. I really like this character in the manhwa, so I'm. It's unfortunate that he's not as good as I would hope, but yeah, it's fine. That's what we have. Here, next we have Evan. This guy is one of those units for which you do not need any kind of dupes whatsoever. You just need to have him, and he's going to have the invincibility for 6 seconds on his special skill, and that's not going to scale with levels. As we can see, the 6 seconds is in black, so it's not going to scale up. And that's all you need him to do. Obviously, full rainbow would be awesome because you would proc the special skill almost immediately in a fight together with BAM that will generate his energy. It's just going to immediately trigger the skill, and your whole yellow team will be a lot more tanky. But still not that needed because again we have BAM that's going to generate energy. So we are not going to feel the lack of the full rainbow that much, but still a nice addition. Still one of the last units to focus on. I would say you do not get really a lot of value out of green, blue, purple, or red, or even orange. It doesn't really matter. You could get additional value with the 3 blue, just because then it receives less damage from the purple element, which is always welcome, so you could definitely go for that. But again, just a nice to have thing, nothing mandatory. To me, him at 0 dupes is perfectly fine. You can use him and have no issues whatsoever. Next is Goseng. I don't want to spend time talking about SR and R characters because you will have them at full rainbow sooner or later anyway, and you cannot decide whether you want to pull for them or not. So let's just not talk about them and let's take it for granted that you have them at full rainbow because you will. Also, gray, again, we don't really care. For rainbow, not necessary because we don't care about her special skill, we only care about her passive. But again, I'm not going to talk about SR units. Then we have Gyetang. This guy is a main DPS, and as most main DPSs, you will want the 3 red on him just for the additional scaling and additional DPS, and also for the elemental advantage buff. So definitely 3 red is mandatory. Is a ranged unit, yes, but is lacking defensive skill. It doesn't have any resistances or any way to survive some sort of damage. So his 4 orange would actually be nice, but still, ranged unit, you can place it in a way that is not taking damage, so it's quite okay at 3 red. And this guy, overall, I wouldn't bother investing in him, so yeah, just leaving him at like no dupes or whatever, and you'll be fine. Next is Hatz. This guy is also some sort of main DPS. I would say after floor 16 again is not really going to fulfill that role anymore, but you can definitely still use him somewhere in PvP, but not in the higher floors of adventure. So this guy, I mean, as every other DPS, you is mandatory the 3 red for the additional scaling and the additional damage against the purple element, but like you also need orange and rainbow because this guy is extremely squishy. Not until like floor 16 again, but after that he's going to explode. So you want that additional orange or rainbow for him to survive a little bit, but it's not going to last that long. So to me, it's not worth the investment, and I wouldn't go this route anymore. Yihwa Yeon will just serve you better overall, and yeah, that's it. Next we have Rak. This guy doesn't really have great skills. I mean, he does, so you can still make use of his. He has like physical and magic resistance boost for all his allies, which is really good. Only the ones nearby, but yeah, okay. So he's really good. You could take him to 3 red as mandatory, but I would still say 3 purple is enough of a buff. He's okay. You don't need much else. It would be recommended to take it to 4 orange just for the additional HP and also the remaining levels of skills. But then again, his special skill is nothing special. Okay, sorry the pun on words was not intended, but yeah. So to me, for Rainbow is definitely overkill on this guy, but just in general, is not like that worth it. Is some sort of sub tank because it cannot fulfill the main tank role just because what I said also in previous videos is it starts ranged, so it's going to be close to your backline and the enemy tanks will come closer to your backline, which is something you don't want to see. So it's kind of fine as a sub tank, but yeah, to me not worth the investment. So maybe once the data UREC is going to be released, maybe things will change, but for now, I don't think so. Next is Shibisu. He's one of those boss units I was mentioning, and he's also one of those guys I'm focusing on now to take him to 3 red. I feel like he's less of a priority as compared to Cheonhwa, because Cheonhwa can really combo well with Blood for the 100% defense shred we were talking about before. And this guy is kind of overlapping with Blood again because of his physical and magic resistance shreds that are not needed with Blood. Steel is quite valuable. He gets a lot of value out of his skill levels. He will get 80% magic and physical resistance shred on his special skill. He is the yellow element buffer, but that's not that big of a deal. The stun, we don't really care. And he's also going to decrease the energy recovery of the enemy. That's also really, really good against bosses. So he is basically only a bossing unit. You will hardly use him in adventure at all. Also because it's just one of those supports that are close range that are running in the middle of the battle and dying immediately. So not useful again in adventure, but is one of the boss units you want to get. Again, since he's not as used as Cheonhwa, I wouldn't prioritize him over that other guy, but still, it could be valuable nonetheless. There are some compositions that only use him, uh, another thing. So yeah, it's definitely worth it, but lower priority to me than the other guy. Next up, we have Vespa. This unit, I already mentioned it in my previous video. This one is a good stall tank we have here because of the passive invincibility frames. So this unit can buy you at least 2 seconds pretty much of survivability for your whole team, which is at times often enough for your Yihwa Yeon to cast her special skill. You would need Yihwa Yeon at full rainbow pretty much, but that's anyway something you want to get, and that has the priority over getting any dupes for Vespa. So before you even think about getting dupes for Vespa, you should ask yourself if your Yihwa Yeon is at full rainbow. If not, then definitely prioritize Yihwa. Vespa is still a really good unit. You could get some dupes. It will improve this unit's performance in PvP. It will also buy probably 1 or 2 additional seconds when you get this unit to 3 purple, but to me that's not worth it. Even though yellow doesn't have a lot of units to invest in, to be honest, only Yihwa and Bam, and then Evan obviously, but he is an SSR plus, so he's a different story. So everyone else, it's pretty much up to you. I would say Cheonhwa is a nice pick because of his boss capabilities, but you don't need him that early on, so it's quite fine to also get some additional copies of Vespa and keep Vespa in the wishlist for a little bit, but definitely not in the leftmost spot. That's either reserved to Yihwa or Bam or other colors main DPSs. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about Vespa. So yeah, we can move on to the next unit, which is going to be Wangnan Ja. This guy is a main DPS, but is kind of lacking in many aspects. As a main DPS, you still want the 3 red, obviously, and also it's highly recommended to get him to for Rainbow if you really want to use him. But I see him only being somewhat usable as a sub DPS, but even then is not that good, so I would not invest anything in him, guys. I made the mistake of bringing him to 3 red, but I've never used this guy. I did in some cases, but it was more of a assassin bait because he has a revive on the passive, so it was kind of fine to sacrifice him, and it could still try and do something, but really it doesn't do any damage if you do not invest in his gear, which I didn't. You, if you do not invest in his exclusive equipment a little bit, the plus 20 and plus 30 as we saw are not as important, but yeah. He has nice scalings in his skills. It could be worth it. The revive is definitely a nice feature, but I don't feel like he has any use. He is not comparable to Yihwa Yeon in the least, and I'm not even sure you would want to use him as a sub DPS, even though that's probably the only spot you could use him for. But yeah, it might be good in PvP, but definitely not in adventure. And also for bosses, it's not anything that great. So yeah, that's about it, guys. Don't pull him, and you'll be fine. Next in the list is Yihwa Yeon, and again, not much to say. She is a main DPS, so you definitely want her 3 red, and she will be already fine. But her special skill is so good that it's highly, highly, highly recommended the full rainbow. So definitely she's the first yellow unit you should get to that point. And yeah, that that's all I really wanted to say. Her scaling is nice overall. She has really high numbers, and uh, yeah, that's all she has. She can really, really destroy whole teams with just her special skill alone. So, so her value with full rainbow just skyrockets. She is really, really insane. So definitely prioritize her. And other than these guys, that's pretty much all for the yellow element. I will be preparing the purple team one really soon. I hope I can get it to come out on the 2nd of January. I'm still like unsure on what's going to happen during this New Year's Eve and this new like this first of the year. So we will see. I should be able to make it, so you can look forward to the new videos on the 2nd of January. Otherwise, we will be seeing each other a little bit later on in January still. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and you found it helpful, and I will be seeing you guys in the next one. Bye.